this one is to tithe or not to tithe. Was the nudge really from above? Question mark. I had been a guest on the local TV station in El Paso and had subsequently been offered a job to do the sports roundup. The first night I was on a local businessman. Saw the show and called me up after the show and offered me a job for twice the money, plus a car and an expensive allowance. It was a public relations job. All I had to do was take guys out to lunch, but most of that, I found out after taking the job, consisted of them drinking their lunches. And after about 6 months, I knew that this wasn't for me. I told the boss I was going to quit. When I told my wife I was quitting, she was not happy. We were expecting our first child. I told her I would rather live in a tent than to keep working there. I had no idea what I was going to do, but as a new Christian, I had been miserable in that role. I had been working at a facility that had a large truck scale. On my last day on the job, a guy from Mexico, Guadalupe Rivera, came in to weigh his full truck of scrap cloth. A friend of mine ran a clothes factory, and I had seen a good amount of these same type of scraps, known in the trade as remnants, at his factory, which gave me an idea. I asked Guadalupe if he would be interested in buying more of these retazos, if I could supply them, and he said yes, and so I was able to collect and sell these to him, making $6,000 in my first week doing this, which of course I was pretty pleased with. My wife was now happy as well, but after a couple of months, it became clear to me that it took a long time for factories to build up the kind of volume that I'd cashed in on. However, I was before long able to obtain a good amount of fabric from another source and asked Guadalupe if he wanted it. He said he did, but that I would have to give him credit, which I did, to the tune of $2,800. I didn't see Guadalupe after this for a few months, and had no idea where he lived or where his business was. Yes, I was a shrewd businessman, but what I did know was that I was becoming desperate for that money. My wife, Mimi, was soon to give birth, and we would be facing all kinds of expenses. Not at all what I wanted to hear. On a Saturday, I prayed and asked God to send Senor Rivera to me, but instead of doing that, I felt like he told me to tithe on that $2,800. That wasn't at all what I wanted to hear or do, because in my mind that didn't make any sense. If I were to tithe that amount, it would pretty much leave me broke. I would be out both the $2,800 owed to me plus the $280. But despite my misgivings, I still felt a strong urge to do what I felt God had directed me to do. So the next day we went to church. Although conflicted, I tithed 10% on the money. Monday morning rolled around, and while I was still in bed at 6 o'clock, I heard a knock on my front door. I opened the door to see Guadalupe standing there. He promptly handed me the full $2,800. I just thanked the Lord and wondered at his faithfulness.